Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're going to try something new. This comes to us as a recommendation from a longtime supporter, someone who's recommended quite a few things that I've enjoyed doing, Bucky749. On my unboxing video, I got a pair of black sunglasses, and he said I look like one of the Bruise Brothers from Jimmy Hart's Memphis days, which got into a whole thing about reviewing Memphis. So we're going to try it out. I put a poll up on YouTube, seeing if there would be any interest in this. It got a decent amount of responses. It's got the most responses out of anything I put on the YouTube community page. So we're going to try this. I'm going to call this Walking in Memphis. Basically, it's a similar concept to when I reviewed the stuff where it came from the network. However, the CWA Memphis Wrestling isn't on the WWE network. This is all stuff I have to find on YouTube. I've curated and I actually found a playlist with quite a good amount of the content, and I just started from the beginning. The first one they have listed. So this is what we're going into. This is CWA from Memphis from February 20th, 1982. And we're going to jump right in. If you haven't watched any of our shows here, or my shows here before, I grade everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. First match of the night, or the show, is a very young Stan Lane versus a Nightmare Danny Davis. Now, this isn't the WWE referee Danny Davis, which he gets mistaken for a lot. This is the Danny Davis that would go on to form OVW and run OVW. I thought this was a good, solid match. Stan Lane is a great worker. Nightmare Danny Davis, obviously, another really solid worker. He's a guy that's trained a lot of your favorite wrestlers. A lot of the people that you see that have had success over the last 15, 20 years have at some point been under the tutelage of Danny Davis. I thought this was a good match, a good way to start the show. Stan Lane picks up the win here. I'm giving this a 4. I thought it was really good. Now, coming off of that, on my normal reviews, I don't review promos because usually it's part of a 3-hour show. But with it being promos being so integral to the product at the time, I am going to review them as segments, kind of just like they were a match. So I'm going to keep them, if there's more than one promo in a row, I'm going to review that as one whole segment. We get promos from Superstar Bill Dundee and Steve Keirn, which was really cool. 1982, this was before I started watching wrestling. I started watching wrestling about a year later, and I really didn't start seeing anything from Memphis till at least 5 years later, at the very least, before it started showing up on my cable television. But 1982, I was about 5 years old, so I didn't see any of this, and it's kind of interesting watching Stan Lane, a guy who later I would know as part of the Midnight Express, Steve Keirn, I would know as, one of the Fantastics, and Bill Dundee, kind of seeing them young. It's kind of cool to see these guys do interviews. 2 great interviews here. I'm giving this segment a 4. Next up, we get Jimmy Hart's First Family, with too many members for me to mention here. Introducing their newest member, Kenny Shane, which leads to Jimmy Hart and Kenny Shane getting their faces pushed into a cake by Sweet Stan Lane, who was still in the ring. Thought this is another solid segment. Kind of your classic wrestling trope. This has happened 1,000 times, probably on 1,000 different wrestling shows. I'm going to give this one a 3. Thought it was pretty solid. Next up, we get one of the times that I'm kind of embarrassed to do these when we run into these. We get a very stereotypical, problematic in 2022 gimmick. Chief Thundercloud versus Beautiful Bobby Eaton. Beautiful Bobby Eaton is at this point part of Jimmy Hart's First Family. This was a good match. It wasn't quite as good as Stan Lane versus Danny Davis, but still pretty good. You could tell Chief Thundercloud was kind of doing Chief J Strongbow imitation. He did a lot of the same moves, and a lot of the quote-unquote Native American wrestlers of the time had very similar movesets. They all did a war dance. They all did a tomahawk chop. I know. I feel wrong saying it now. It doesn't feel right, but it's a product of the time. This was a good match. Bobby Eaton picks up the win here. I'm giving this a 3. Next up, we have a sit-down segment with Lance Russell and Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler is talking about a match that he had with Dutch Mantel, where Jimmy Hart's first family came in. He calls Dutch Mantel to come out, and this was just awesome. They show highlights of the match. You get two of the best talkers in all of Memphis wrestling history. Obviously, everybody knows who Jerry Lawler is. Dutch Mantel flies a little bit under the radar, but I've always loved Dutch Mantel. I think I want to say the first time I seen him would have been on one of the Great American Bashes that I would have rented on a VHS. From a very young age, I knew I loved wrestling, so when we would go to the video store, whenever there'd be any kind of wrestling video cassette, I would rent it. And that's how I found out a lot. I grew up just outside of Philadelphia, so we were what was basically a WWF territory, but it also they aired NWA Crockett television, so you would see some of these guys. And then also, when we would get cable, we would get the AWA, and then for some strange reason, CWA showed up on cable. I forget what channel it was. You would see Memphis wrestling on cable, and I want to say I got to see Memphis on cable, NWA, AWA, World Class, definitely, Glow, and of course the WWF, which we were considered the Northeast, which is kind of neat because I liked what I seen in the WWF, but I was liking more what I seen in the Jim Crockett, the NWA territories. No knock on WWF at the time, and I liked also being able to follow wrestlers as they jumped around. Anyway, I digress. They get into a brawl together. I give it a 5. Two just awesome talkers carrying an awesome segment. Trying to put myself in this mindset, this would have got me to buy a ticket to go see Lawler versus Dutch on that run of house shows, or at the time, not necessarily called house shows, but the TV was basically an infomercial for you to buy tickets. Now, like now, where everything builds for TV, it was a total opposite back then. Next up, we get a 6-man match. We got Gypsy Joe. Yup, the Gypsy Joe of New Jack Bad Incident fame. Speed, who is Kenny Wayne, who would go on to be another nightmare with Danny Davis. Sweet Brown Sugar, who is Coco Beware, versus the aforementioned Bill Dundee, Sweet Stan Lane again, and Steve Kern. Pre-Fantastics, Kern and Lane tagging together. At least I think it's pre-Fantastic, because I might be wrong. If I am, let me know in the comments. The match goes on a little bit. We get the first family comes out, and again, it's way too many of them for me to even say. Pampiro Firpo, Bobby Eaton are definitely in there. I'm going to put a link to the video that I watched to review this in the description here so you can watch along. Some of it, there's a couple people I couldn't pick out just because of the quality of the tape. Some of it, there's just, if you watch during the time, the first family was like 15 members deep. So it's hard to pick out wrestlers when you're rolling 15 deep, and a lot of them have a very similar style. We get that, which was soon there's going to be a DQ. We go to what should have been a commercial break, come back. They restart the second fall. It ends up being basically more of the same. I don't know that there was an official announcement of who won. If they said it, I didn't catch it. If anything, Dundee, Lane, and Kern probably won by disqualification because it's the first family that kept getting involved. The faces all come out. Because it really didn't go anywhere, and there was really nothing happening other than just brawls, I'm going to give this a 2. My least favorite part of the night. And I was really interested to see Sweet Brown Sugar because I've seen enough of Coco Beware's work in Memphis that I really enjoy watching it when I get a chance. And again, I like Bill Dundee. I love Stan Lane. Like Steve Kern a lot. So I was a little bit disappointed here. The announcers talk about a match that I don't know if it was cut on this recording that's on YouTube, but they talk about the Midnight Express, which at the time was Norvell Austin, Randy Rose, and Dennis Condrey. Condrey and Rose going up against the Gibson brothers, which I would have liked to see. Robert and Ricky Gibson, his older brother Robert, going on to be part of the Rock and Roll Express. But then we get to close out the show. We get a promo with the Midnight Express. At this time, Norvell Austin, Randy Rose, and Dennis Condrey. Pre-Jim Cornette being involved in the Midnight Express. Obviously pre-Stan Lane. This is kind of where they got the idea for the original Midnight Express, was through this. I thought this was a really good promo. I wish I would have seen more of Norvell Austin in his time. I've seen very little of him. A lot of the Memphis stuff, they didn't save the tapes. And a lot of the territories he worked in, I believe he worked in Continental a lot. There's not a lot of video of him, but from what I've seen, I really enjoyed him. And hopefully, as I keep going down these videos, I'll get to see more and more of Norvell Austin, because he cuts an awesome promo here. And of course, Dennis Condrey and Randy Rhoads, no slouches. I'm giving it a 4 to end out this show with that segment. All in all, for my first foray into this, which I'm going to call this a series, Walking in Memphis. I like the song, and I thought it had a nice ring to it, so that's what we're going to name this. Overall, I'm going to give the show a 4. A lot of really solid stuff here. I enjoyed seeing young versions of guys I would know better later on. Bobby Eaton, Stan Lane, Steve Kern, Bill Dundee, Coco Beware. I mean, just amazing. Dennis Condrey, I've said this before, my favorite version of the Midnight Express is Eaton and Condrey. And I think Dennis Condrey doesn't quite get the respect he deserves because he's an absolute fantastic wrestler. And I hope some of the videos I get to watch more Condrey actually wrestling in this time period. But anyway, let me know what you think about this. Do you like this idea? Make sure, again, click on the link in the description to go watch this. If I could help, I don't know whose channel it was. I do apologize for that. But hopefully I could get some views going their way, because this was absolutely awesome that something like this is out there for wrestling fans like myself to go and watch. With all that being said, please like, comment, share. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And normally on all my videos I ask at the end, so I can gauge who's watching all the way through, to put a little comment down here. For this one, I'm going to make it special. If you want to see me do more of these, comment yes please. If you don't want to see any more of these, comment hell no. And that way I'll know you've made it all the way to the end. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been the inaugural episode of Walking in Memphis.